Greetings! In today's video, I'll be taking a look at the new Micro Painter. For a bit of context, this tiny palette is the small sibling of the Portable Painter Classic. Both were designed by the same person, Mr. Steve Padden. The Portable Painter is really nice as an all-in travel palette, so I was very excited to take a first look at the new Portable Painter Micro. The very small palette comes in a small grey drawstring bag, and it is super compact. There's also a small pamphlet with instructions on how to set it up with a lot of photos. The box and its pieces are very well thought out, in the sense that there are details to help figure out what goes where and in which way. The main body of the palette can be removed from the bottom casing. The lid and the bottom casing can be attached to the side of the body interchangeably, to act as a water reservoir and as a mixing space. On the bottom of the main part of the palette, there is a retractable T-shaped part to secure the palette in place if one is holding it in their hand. This palette is made out of white plastic that feels nice and sturdy. I was also sent a set of extra pans, including 6 half pans and 3 full pans. As you can see, it comes without paints. This is particularly useful to any painter, as we all tend to have different favorite colors. The Micro Painter is made in a way that accommodates both sizes of pans, either the ones from this set, made especially for the palette, or generic half pans and full pans. For my Micro Painter, as a starting point, I'll pour the 6 colors from the Essential set of paints from Daniel Smith. It's basically a split primary, with Hansa Yellow Light, New Gamboge, Quinacridone Rose, Pyrrole Scarlet, French Ultramarine, and Phthalo Blue Green Shade. These 6 colors are enough to allow me to mix just about any color I want. After filling the pans, I set the palette aside for a bit, until the paints were fully dry. Now, as you can see, the paint blobs shrank a bit as they dried, but not enough to be truly significant. It's always something that happens with paint from tubes as it dries. My palette is now ready for a test run. I set up my swatch sheet in 2 parts. On the left, I have the usual swatches with the black stripe for checking a paint's opacity. On the right, I made a quick mixing chart. It's a good exercise to do with smaller color selections because, first, it doesn't take too much time, and second, it's a really useful reference. Alright, let's take a look at the dry swatches. This is the split primary set from Daniel Smith. We've seen it earlier in the video. Again, it has a cool and a warm version of every primary. So we have a cool yellow, cool red, warm red, cool blue, warm blue. And from these 6 colors here, this is basically the mixes we can make. Of course, it's just sort of one point of mix between the 2 colors, but you can definitely lean a color more towards one or towards the other color. But just for a quick look at what is possible, you can see we get a few oranges in here, we get greens, we get sort of purpley colors, we get a really nice neutral from the Pyrrole Scarlet and the Phthalo Blue-Green shade. And then you also always have kind of more bright and then more muted colors. And you have a bit more bright, a bit more muted, you know, that kind of stuff. This one should probably be a bit more bright. I think it's a bit too diluted. But yeah, a really nice range of colors that you can make from these 6. If you need to make a brown, you just mix a bit of everything together. You mix a bit of any primary color, like one yellow, one red, one blue. That's gonna get you some sort of brown that you can tweak and mix to get what you want exactly. With this set, the only color that is kind of granulating is the French ultramarine. It's got kind of it's not the most granulation I've seen, but it's definitely not as smooth as the other colors. So in light of that, the mixes including this color can have a bit of granulation in them, something that you won't find in the other mixes. After that, it was time to paint a small demo piece. I used the photo as reference, one that I saw on Pinterest. As I've said, I mostly use Pinterest when I want to do work from reference that will stay in my sketchbook. And if I work on something that will become a print or that I want to sell the original painting, I will either work from a royalty-free picture or figure it out on my own without reference. I had my color mixing chart off screen as a guide, and I tried my best to only use the palette, meaning that I would not rinse off my brush in the nearby painting water ball. I think I slipped up once or twice, and then I covered the ball with a paper towel, so yeah. The palette, with the water on one side and the mixing areas on the other sides, was very stable. The amount of water contained in the bottom casing is relatively nice. I feel like if I was painting more than one piece, I might have to empty and refill it from whatever bottle I filled it with first. But it's a really nice amount of water to allow you to rinse off your brush and work on your painting. The way I generally feel about palettes and painting sizes is to pair them up, meaning that a small palette is lovely for small paintings, and a large palette is great for large paintings. I wouldn't want to have to paint something large with a tiny palette. It just seems very impractical. You saw me paint the demo painting for that one. It's mostly dry by now, so I'll remove the tape. Lifting a small amount of paper from the page again. And as things turns out, this is sort of the back side of the paper. The Etchr paper seems to have a front and a back. That's very common with most watercolor papers. I work with arches a lot, and it really has a front and a back of the paper. The back of the paper is usually the one that has kind of more of the texture of the surface on which the paper was made, while the the front of the paper has the texture you want for painting. If you take a look close at this one, maybe you can see, I think we can see it a bit over here, but there is this kind of a regular pattern in there. Usually you can sometimes see it in the shadow of my finger. Yeah, you can see it there. It has kind of a regular pattern on top of the paper's pattern. This one looks like kind of a grid a bit, if you know what I mean. And this shows that it's the back side of the paper. You can paint on the back side of the paper, but you gotta be aware that there's this texture on one side of the paper sometime, so that you can sort of plan your paintings accordingly. Of course, in a sketchbook like this, I personally don't mind using both sides of the paper. I feel it would be a bit of a waste to just use one side of the paper, but that's my mindset. Again, I use the photo as reference for this sketch. This is the way I like to use photo references and watercolor when sketching. It's mostly an ink and wash approach, and yeah. I think that the colors, I mean, the paints are good. The paints are Daniel Smith. That's not exactly the problem. I would say that in terms of using this set on its own as much as possible, you saw me, I had this palette set out. I used the container as the water container. Like, if I was to go out and paint with this set, I would still need to bring brushes, some water in a bottle, and some rags to wipe my brushes. I'm not very good with water brushes, so that's why I don't usually carry those. But the water compartment here is really stable, was really easy to use. I was afraid that the set, I've seen it with other sets, but sometimes when you try to use it, it can buckle a bit. If you take a look at the way when you set it up, like these two parts, are gonna be flat on the surface. But the thing is, when you add this part in here, this one is not supported by anything. Like, it's not on the same level as the other one. And I was a bit worried that what if when I mix over here or I mix over here, will it tilt the whole set, you know, and make a mess because of the water in here? But it was super stable, really no complaints there. Very, like, a really nice size for the water container. I think it's super well suited to painting smaller sizes, like smaller sketches when outdoors, which is a bit like what I did, because otherwise your water would get dirty super fast and you might need to replace it often. Again, this set, incredibly small, incredibly portable, really light, sturdy as well, and really, really well made. I'm really happy with it. I think it's a really nice balance in terms of paint capacity, but also having enough spaces for mixing compared to the number of colors you have in there. You saw that you can customize the number of pans you put in there with the sets that come from Portable Painter. You have extra sets of pans, where you can have like full pans, you can have 3 full pans, you can have like, you can sort of decide how you want to set it up inside to a certain extent. And I feel like the number of mixing areas for this set goes really well with the number of colors in it.
There's another fun trick to put together with this palette. Well, with 2 of these palettes. Steve Padden is the one who let me know about this fun setup. With 2 palettes and 2 binder clips, you can attach 2 micro painters together. That means twice the number of colors, mixing space, and water containers. Or however you want to customize how you use all that doubled up stuff. Considering how small the micro painter is when packed up, it's a really nice way to boost your options without having to carry a large palette. It's also sturdy and stable when attached together, which is great. After trying out this set, is it something that I would recommend? Absolutely. I think it's really nice. If you feel that it's something you would use and you would enjoy using, by all means. It's well made, it's sturdy, it's, you know, the finish is lovely and it fits together really, really nicely. There's no part that doesn't like go properly where it's meant to go. So a really nice object, really well made. I'm very thankful that I was sent this palette to try out. I've talked with the artist who makes these, who made these possible, designed and set them up for production, and he's a really, really nice guy and really kind, and his focus is really on making tools that artists will enjoy using. So in light of all this, after you've seen me use this, do you think it's something you would enjoy using? What do you think of the idea overall? Let me know in the comments below. Take care, bye bye.